and welcome on into Dynasty Never Rests. This is a fantasy football podcast focused on Dynasty fantasy football, trades, and awesome guest stars. And it feels kind of weird right now because I'm podcasting with the co-host of the Kurt Crew Fantasy Football Podcast. So when I was opening my mouth just there, I was like, welcome to the Kurt Crew. Wait, nope, that's not the right one. And so Adam Sky Fantasy, my brother, Adam Kurt, is our awesome guest on the podcast today. As I said, we have podcasted a different show together, but this is a whole different ball game because we get to talk Dynasty now, and our other podcast is Redraft. So welcome, Adam.
Thanks. Yeah, he said that if I talked with him the first minute, he was going to hurt me. So I was really careful to be silent at the beginning.
Just don't show the snipers on camera. It's poor taste.
Well, I mean, the red dots are showing on my back, so you really can't.
Well, I'll put a red eye filter on it, so
okay.
They won't be able to see it. All right, so that's enough sniper talk, but we are going to just dive right into the show. You know, we're here to talk football, and that's what we're going to do. So free agency has been a little crazy. And by a little crazy, I mean this is
insanity.
It's insanity. Like,
this is what we have wanted. Like, we've been like NBA All-Star, like trade deadline type deals. That's what we need here. Okay. James, you listened.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me all these, like Devonta Adams is a Raider and Tyreek Hill is a Dolphin and Matt Ryan is a Colt and Deshaun Watson is a Brown and all these, Khalil Mack is a Charger and all these just different blockbuster moves that have been so exciting, but it's really created a chaotic free agency. But with all these trades, I feel like free agency still has some big names out there. Do you agree?
Yeah, there's a couple of big names that have not moved. I think the one of the big pieces I had written on when I was prepping for this has fallen. Terran Armstead was really the biggest, I think, piece left out there.
Yeah.
And he got a big chunk of money to go play for the Dolphins. So
I do have a question about that. Terran Armstead, do you believe that he or Sheriff is the better player?
Brandon Sheriff?
Yeah.
I think Armstead is the better player.
Yeah.
The difference between the two is reliability.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Armstead just got a little less in his contract than Sheriff did. So I was just wondering kind of how you felt about that. All right.
I hadn't compared the contracts, so I didn't know that.
I mean, I just, off the top of my head, it kind of popped in.
Well, it's, the Dolphins managed to go on an 8-game winning streak. They really should have had a better season. You have to pay players to show up in Jacksonville much more than they are worth. He got left tackle money as a guard. Christian Kirk got paid to be a top 10 wide receiver. He's not that. Like, I hope he does well, but he's not that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad for the guy because literally everyone has been bad talking his contract and everything, but he's never supported a 1,000-yard season. He's had 4 100-yard games in his NFL career. That guy should not be paid as the third highest wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
So, speaking of some of the best free agents out there, we kind of want to go over, who's left in the pool, and we'll hit a couple defensive players and a couple offensive players just because we want to highlight the whole pool of free agency. Like we mentioned Khalil Mack because he's a big player and he's going to impact the Chargers in a way that they can get pressure, and so that'll help your redraft defenses. If you play IDP, that'll help you there. And so we are going to hit on some of the defensive guys, but we won't focus too much on there. So, Adam, who's your first guy here?
I think Tyrann Mathieu actually is the biggest guy floating out there. He was the heart and soul of the Kansas City defense, known as the Honey Badger. He was kind of hoping to reset the safety market even at the age of, 28 or 29. And I've heard nothing. I've heard absolutely nothing on him. And immediately the Chiefs signed Eric Reed from the Texans. Then Marcus Williams got a whole bunch of money to go to the Baltimore Ravens, which I thought was a good contract. I think he's
Quandre Diggs also got a sizable contract. So the safety market has been high. Like, these guys are getting a lot of money, but I think that maybe Tyrann is asking for more than all of these guys.
Yeah, I would expect actually him to take a little bit of a discount, just because the market hasn't, I don't think, been there. And I think he might go to the Chargers, which is just filthy. Him and Derwin James in the same secondary. They still have I think they have the most cap space left out of any team still. The Chargers do.
Yeah, they did restructure a couple of contracts, Khalil Max, Keenan Allen, to clear up some more cap space.
Yeah, I think they can add him, and he really becomes their fifth best defensive player. You have Nick Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, and J.C. Jackson, who you just paid money to be a cornerback. That's terrifying.
Oh, absolutely.
That's terrifying, and you need more firepower within that division. That's who I'd be targeting as a Charger. Who's one of your top players that you have out there?
I'm gonna go with Odell Beckham Jr. He came off of the Browns and went to the Rams, and he was really good. He was kind of this old Odell that we had seen, and I was not a big believer that Odell kind of had it, and Odell proved me wrong. And I think that he can still be a alpha wide receiver when in the right situation and with a QB that has a level head. And so if he can find a place to go, like, I would love to see him as an Indianapolis Colt. I think he would be a great counterpart to Michael Pittman, give Matt Ryan another option to throw to, and just kind of give that offense a full circle. And I know he's coming off a torn ACL, and there is some concern with that, but I do believe that he can come back strong. He's just 29, and the hill for wide receiver isn't 29. He's got a couple of good years left, so I could even see the Colts, or whoever he signs with, getting him on a multi-year deal, but at a discount because he's coming off an ACL injury. And so I would love to see him find a good home and show us that he is continually going to be that freak of a guy when he's on the field.
Yeah, he'll be interesting. Browns reunion has been floated out there that he's interested in going back now that Deshaun Watson is there. Personally, I wouldn't mind him for a reasonable discount. I don't know if that's going to happen as on the Bears, but just somebody reliable for Odell Beckham Jr. to throw to. But
Odell, hold on, you said Odell Beckham to throw to.
No, I don't think I did. This guy to throw to OBJ. This guy right here. Okay. Another person that I'm interested in is Gronkowski. I don't know if he's saving off retirement or not. The two other spots that he had mentioned, the Bills and the Bengals, have each signed a tight end. He said he loves Joe Burrow and mentioned going and playing with the Bills and Josh Allen. So I think it's Tampa Bay or bust for him. And it'll be interesting to see what he does because he had extreme fantasy relevance when that happened. So,
yeah, I think that Gronk is going to wait a while to sign. so that he doesn't have to participate in minicamp, so he doesn't have to do all the training camp crap, and he can come in and not have to do a ton of the workouts and just show up and be the starter. I still think he goes back to Tampa Bay, but I don't think he signs for another couple months.
Yeah.
It's just kind of who Gronk is. There was a report that Gronk he had to run sprints for Bruce Arians on video.
Yeah.
And
It's a great story.
He would change his shirt on the same day and record different sprints. So he would only have to work out once a week, and then he would send in the different outfits to Arians.
Yeah.
Just an absolute Gronk thing, and it was. I'm very glad that came to light because it was just nobody else but Gronk.
Yeah, he's never stopped being a frat boy. So
yeah. All right, my number 2 guy here is offensive tackle Eric Fisher. I think that Eric Fisher is very good at what he does. He will. You don't like that. I think Eric Fisher is very good at what he does. He fulfills a role as a run stopper, as a pass blocker, and although he's in his 30s, I think he's 31. I do believe that he will be good wherever he signs, but I wouldn't mind him signing with the Tennessee Titans. Their offensive line situation isn't great, and Eric Fisher would fit into that scheme well as a starting lineman, because Tennessee basically has 2 starting linemen and then a bunch of bench guys. So
yeah, I'm not too interested. Is that Usher?
Yes.
Making the noise. Hi, buddy. Fisher, I just don't think he has it anymore. The injuries and stuff have really slowed him down. Kind of reminds me of Kyle Long in the injuries just took away what should have been a really good career. I just don't think he bounces back.
And that could be totally possible. But I don't think he's getting sheriff money or anything like that. I don't think he's going to get a contract like Armstead. But I do believe that he still has some juice, but we'll just kind of see where he lands. And at this point, it's got to be for a discount because, it's been 7-8 days of free agency, and I haven't heard a single rumor about him. And so,
Yeah.
So I'm guessing he's got to take a pay cut to kind of land in a starting role.
Yeah.
Who's your next guy here?
I'll go with J.C. Treader. Now, he was cut, so he wasn't really a true free agent, but technically he is a free agent. The former Browns center, I think he slides over in the division to the Ravens. Bradley Bozeman went and signed with Carolina, and you need to protect Lamar. Their playoff chances died. Tyler Huntley played well, but it clearly made a difference not to have him out on the field. Plus, you want to keep the running backs healthy. He's a veteran guy, and they can get him, no effect to their compensatory picks, and they can add lineman skill in the draft and let them develop underneath a guy.
Yeah, I was really pulling for J.C. Treader to join the Bears, but with their free agents signing, they have announced that I can't think of his name right now.
Lucas Patrick.
Lucas Patrick is going to be playing center, and so I think that kind of takes them out of the J.C. Treader role. Although Patrick is somebody who can kind of hit each piece on the line because he's played all of it.
He can play guard. He doesn't command enough money to dictate where he plays. It's just what he's been told.
Yeah, and so I would love to see Treader on the Bears, but I don't think it's very likely at this point. My next guy here is Melvin Gordon, on 203 carries last year, he had 900 yards. The guy's wheels haven't fallen off quite yet. And so I believe that he can slide into his starting role, being even in a split backfield, kind of like he was last year. But his wheels haven't fallen off, and people see when a running back gets 28, at least in the fantasy community, they just leave him for dead. And I just think Melvin Gordon, even like if he goes and compliments Alvin Kamara, like I would love to see that two-headed monster there, of Melvin Gordon and Alvin Kamara, especially if Kamara faces some time with a suspension due to his antics in Vegas. I think Melvin Gordon deserves a role in which he's getting at least 40% of the touches. He's still a good running back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because even if you float around the league, there's not a whole lot of true backfields left open, and I think he wanted to vie for a starting job. The Texans have signed like 5 different situational backs. The rest of it is,
I mean, he would be the best back at the Texans, Falcons, and Bills for sure. So those are 3 landing spots to start with, and I could go into it more, but I do think that the market is getting thinner for sure, just at this point in free agency, with James Conner, Chase Edmonds, Leonard Fournette taking some of the more the backfields with some more appeal. So we'll have to see where he lands, but I would hate him just to sit out there in free agency and not find a role where he's touching the ball.
I don't have any Javonte Williams stock. I hope he just comes back at a discount deal to the Broncos and just terrorizes.
I mean,
vultures.
I wouldn't hate that just because everyone is so high on Javonte. And so Melvin Gordon had a better yards per carry last season than Javonte. And so although Javonte broke a lot more tackles, it would hurt so many Javonte owners. But hopefully,
I want to see them experience pain.
So we might get attacked on Twitter for this very thing, but you know what?
Right.
Let's speak it into existence.
Cool.
All right. Who's your last guy here?
Last guy. I'm going to say I'm going to throw 2 quick ones in here. I think it's very interesting that Stephon Gilmore and Bobby Wagner are both not signed. Stephon Gilmore, I've heard almost nothing about. Bobby Wagner, I've heard Cowboys and Rams, but Gilmore was the defensive player of the year, like 2 years ago? And then gets traded to the Panthers and just ghost town. He has the talent still.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be very interesting to see what his market is. He's a little bit older, but he's not over the hill yet.
Yeah. He definitely still has it in him. The system in which he went to last year Gilmore did not suit him super well. And there was just a whole lot of drama with all that happened with Patriots. I don't know the inside scoop or anything like that. But I do think that he can still play cornerback at a high level. And there's a lot of teams that are very cornerback needy. So he could land in a grand number of places. And my last guy here is actually Jarvis Landry. I think that he is one of the safest signings in free agency. He is going to find a home. He's going to be a cross the middle guy, kind of like Juju was, but I would prefer Landry as an asset to Juju because you know exactly what he does, and he does it so well. I would love him to be an option for Justin Fields.
Yeah.
A guy across the middle who's going to secure the ball, those short area targets. That way, Mooney can stretch the field. And then you've got Komet and hopefully somebody that they pull in the draft to kind of round out that whole room. But to give somebody who Fields can be confident in and just know that the receiver is going to come down with the ball, going to be open in the middle of the field. I just think I'm pretty shocked that he hasn't been signed just because he is so consistent and good at what he does each and every year.
Yeah, I think some of the pause on some of these things is some of the contracts that have come out. It's just gaudy numbers. So
yeah, definitely. There's been some really solid contracts and some really surprising contracts, to say the least.
yeah.
All right, who are some of your favorite free agency signings in the NFL thus far?
All right, so I'm gonna put 3 into 1, and it is the Bengals' offensive line being revamped. They dumped money into it. Got Kappa, got Lyle Collins, and who else they get? Ted Karras at center, I believe so. They lost the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow did everything he possibly could, and Jamar Chase did everything he possibly could. The Bengals should have won that Super Bowl if he has a quarter second more.
Yep, Chase was open.
Chase burned Ramsey. Now, all the memes, the Penei Sewell memes of the difference between that. Now they're like, okay, we may not have a crazy talent like that, but he's going to be, our offensive line just got better. I love this model. They did this with Herbert. All of a sudden their offense exploded. Austin Eckler exploded. This model actually really excites me for the Bears because I think they should draft a whole bunch of young talent around Fields, wide receivers, survive for a year. We're not competing this year. And then spend some of their $131 million in free agency next year on getting solid offensive linemen into place for a couple of years. Everyone wants their team picks today, but the Bengals drafted crazy talent, skill positions for a couple of years, and now put up a wall to protect them while they're still on their rookie contracts. Yeah. And watching that Bengals front office is going, oh gosh, we have to pay T. Higgins and Jamar Chase potentially, and Joe Burrow. Like, by the time these contracts are up, it'll be like, okay, we need to do an evaluation and reset. But taking a Super Bowl team and immediately chopping down 1 week is so you can throw all your draft capital at cornerback so you don't get roasted by Cooper Kupp. I mean, if they pick 7 cornerbacks, none of them will still be able to cover Cooper Kupp, but they won't be Eli Apple, who they kept on the team for some reason, but they brought him back.
Yeah, he was definitely maybe a cheaper option at the position, even though he is far from a good option at the position. But for some reason they like him, and he hopefully they grab a cornerback in the draft to kind of fulfill that role. All right, my favorite signing. There's a couple of them. I'm trying to talk about ones I haven't talked on the show already. I will go. I love the Jameis Winston signing. You commit to him for 2 years. You have the opportunity to maybe draft a guy and put a little pressure on Winston. But last year, Winston was looking very good. He was his touchdown to interception ratio was nothing like you expect of Jameis. It was a lot more touchdowns than it was interceptions. He's Mr. 30-30, 30 interceptions, 30 touchdowns in the last full season he played at quarterback. And And last season, through 6 games, I think he had 5 interceptions in total, and his touchdown rate was through the roof. And so committing to him for 2 years, allowing him to grow behind Drew Brees, and he knows the system very well. I just think that he gives them an opportunity to use Michael Thomas very well, and if they can bring in another wide receiver in the draft and keep that defensive core pretty well, I think they have a chance in the NFC to compete.
That's fair. Yeah, it's just crazy how overloaded the AFC became.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Go over to my second pick is Zay Jones, and a lot of people are going to be like, "Who? What? When? Where? Why?" He signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars to be wide receiver. Yes, they paid Christian Kirk a boatload of money. Yes, they only got a modest deal, but Nelson Aguilar got a lot of money from the Patriots last year, and Kendrick Bourne got a moderate deal. Bourne turned out a valuable season with a rookie QB, which is hard to do. Zay Jones became the reliable number 2 for Derek Carr down the stretch with Hunter Renfrow, and I think he becomes a top target for the Jags, and he will end up being ignored in drafts because of how bad the Jags were and his lack of money. People will be after Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk. I want a shot at him at every opportunity, as I think he can be a top 36 wide receiver for no cost to you whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. Zay Jones is not going to cost anything. I don't believe that he's going to be that guy, but he could very easily be like Kendrick Bourne, in that we kind of didn't see an opportunity, didn't see anything for him, and he actually put up pretty decent numbers last season.
Well, I mean, it's crazy. Kendrick Bourne kept scoring touchdowns. He just took one play.
Because Jacoby Myers can't.
Yeah. Zay Jones was Jacoby Myers. Quite literally, he was the wide receiver 28 from when he became the wide receiver 2 in like week 12 through the rest of the season. He was the wide receiver 28 in points per game with 0 touchdowns.
Yeah, there's definitely a potential.
You throw in a couple, he's a top 24 wide receiver. I mean, what more do you need?
Yeah, there's definitely potential for him to succeed. It's just at this point not my expectation, but that's part of the beauty of fantasy, is that we do disagree in these. There's variance of players, and Zay Jones is going to be free, but I could be kicking myself a year from now because I didn't take advantage of Zay Jones.
Yeah.
My second favorite signing that I haven't talked about yet. I really like the Laken Tomlinson signing. He is a phenomenal guard. The New York Jets got him on a 3-year, $40 million contract, which for a stud offensive lineman, I thought they got him at a discount, which was part of the reason that.
Not really for a guard. He's pretty expensive. Sheriff's pretty much one of the best in the business.
Right, but I don't think there's a huge gap between Tomlinson and Sheriff, and I may be alone on that. But the fact that Sheriff got, $3.5 million a year more, makes Tomlinson's contract seem like a discount.
Yeah.
The Jets have been doing a good job of enforcing that offensive line. They grabbed Mekhi Becton. They grabbed Vera Tucker last year, and now they've got Laken Tomlinson. They're building a nice offensive line core. So if they can keep Zach Wilson healthy, maybe they grabbed two decent receiving and blocking tight ends. I do think they're going to use a lot of two tight end sets with Robert Saleh, but they went away from it last year because of their tight end room last year. It was pretty embarrassing. And so I believe they grabbed Tyler Conklin and CJ Uzama to just ensure that two tight end set, and it's going to just help them succeed more in Robert Saleh's system. So just going to have a nice front seven, so to say, for Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, and maybe Sky Moore or Jameson Williamson or somebody else that they grab in the draft. And maybe they just stick where they are. But we'll just have to see. Who's your third and final guy here?
I'm actually going on to the defense because it should be Von Biller. Yeah, I did that. This defense needed a difference maker on the defensive line on a unit that was already one of the most technically sound over the past couple of years. Now, their 3 to 4 young linemen that they've drafted over the past couple of years get to learn from a Hall of Fame player who literally runs a pass rushing camp and is now going to take pressure off of them to allow them to build their confidence in one-on-one situations. And Vaughn shows up in big games. He has the most sacks in Super Bowl history while only attending 2. The NFL saw the Allen and Mahomes duel and said, we need someone to compete like that. So thus all the quarterback trades like crazy. Like everyone's like, we need our guy that can do this. Then Aaron Donald closed out 2 playoff games, including the Super Bowl, with his arms around the opposing quarterback. He forced pick 6 against the Niners, and he forced a final incompletion against the Bengals to turn it over on downs. 2 turnovers generated by a stud defensive lineman. The NFL said, we need a guy like that. Chandler Jones, Khalil Mack, and Von Miller all left the NFC to go to the AFC, all came to the same division, and the NFL sees the formula. Get a pass rusher and a QB, and you can compete. I mean, if you have just one of them, Nick Bosa, Aaron Rodgers, you can compete. The Bills are going to compete with the Bengals for the number 1 seed for years with this move, as the AFC West tears each other to shred to claim all the wild card spots.
Yeah. It may be the first time we see 4 teams from the same division make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think a couple of the teams, I think Ravens and the Patriots, and I think the Dolphins now will make it interesting.
Yeah. I think you can make an argument for Dolphins. You can make an argument for Titans because, they've made the playoffs the past couple of years. And they just made a move for Robert Woods. So if they can have some more consistency on the offensive side of the ball and keep what they did defensively last year, they would also be up there. But it'll be interesting to watch because right now, as I look at it, I don't know that I see Titans as a top 7 team in the AFC.
But they'll win their division.
But they'll win their division.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people are arguing that Colts with Matt Ryan could win it too, and that's totally a potential possibility. We'll go on to my final free agent acquisition, the one that I love. I talked about this on my first episode, I think, but I'm just going to go with Hassan Reddick again. He was a great signing in his last 2 years. He played at a very high level in Arizona. His first 2 years, he had some issues with injury, and that he had a slow start when coming into the NFL. And so seeing him over the last 2 years to get him at what I consider a discount was just a great move for the Eagles as they struggled with linebacker play last year due to a couple injuries, but they don't really have a stud at the position. And I think Hassan Reddick really just fills that role. He'll be able to be a team leader on that defense, and he'll get some pressure.
Yeah. I like They brought back Derek Barnett as well, so they've got Sweat, him, and Barnett. They've got nobody a true difference maker, I would say, but they have a solid 3-man rotation for the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
They can literally throw all of their draft picks at offensive assets. They brought back Fletcher Cox. They need to get at least a linebacker, but they are they're going to get so much better. They have 3 first-round draft picks. It's insanity.
Yeah. The Eagles and the Dolphins feel in a pretty similar boat here. I posted a tweet about the Howie that he should do exactly what the Eagles just did and go and trade for DK Metcalf or Chris Godwin or DJ Moore.
See, and I disagree with that because of their picks. There are a couple of these guys. You can go draft 2 wide receivers to put bookend on Devontae Smith, and you have them for how many years with a rookie, a rookie contract quarterback. I think they can get value. These guys are ready, and they just have to go. Okay, whoever drafted Jalen Reagor has to get out of this building. They're never allowed back in.
Yeah, that's part of my concern is that the Eagles have these draft picks, but their history of drafting over the past couple of years hasn't been great, and so my preference would be to go get a proven stud with a same kind of price tag as Hill. Send a first and a second. I mean, that still gives them 2 firsts, gives them a high-powered offense. I don't know.
Rookie contracts, man.
Rookie contracts.
It's what the Chiefs just leaned into. They're like, all right, we have 2 picks in the first, second, third, and fourth. And our front office is one of the best in picking, except for the fact that the Ryan Poles just went to the Bears. So,
yeah.
We'll see. But yeah, no, I like it. All right. What's the next thing?
I think we're going to move on to capitalizing on free agency.
We're not going to talk about who has done the best and the worst.
We can say something quick on it, but I want to get to the meat of our show here.
Okay. So I'm going to say defensively, the Chargers have flat out won. You add Mack and J.C. Jackson to Derwin James and Joey Bosa, that's terrifying. And Kenneth Murray has been showing up in the middle of the field. They have a scary defense, a really scary defense. And they have Asante Samuel. They have potential to be freakishly. That's just
absolutely.
scary. Then the 2 teams that have won on offense are the Dolphins with the trade, adding Connor Williams, Taron Armstead, their head coach switched to an offensive mind, and the Bengals for getting all of their offensive line.
Hey,
and
don't forget Chase Edmonds in there.
I meant what I said.
Well, I just didn't want you to leave out the most important addition.
He is not. He's not. I'm not in on him. You can take him. Okay, I'll take anybody at value. I think he's going to be overhyped for the Shanahan system. Okay, Bengals and Dolphins both benefited from the team that has done the worst, and that is the Cowboys, and it's not even close. They lost multiple offensive line members, had to tag Schultz because Blake Jarwin had, I think, career-ending hip surgery, traded away Amari Cooper for nothing. Absolutely nothing. Signed Michael Gallup to a 5-year deal. I'd say that's probably their best move based off of the money compared to the rest of the people. Committed to Tank Lawrence for another several years and blew up their cap doing that. Tried to put in a stupid clause for Randy Gregory that made him flip and go to the Broncos. Kept McCarthy, kept Moore, who don't know how to let their offense soar. Yes, that rhymed. Signed James Washington, who is just bad Michael Gallup, and cleared up a whole bunch of cap space and restructured things. And they didn't get anybody. Nobody came to play for the Cowboys. They re-signed a couple of their defensive pieces, but that's it. This offense is going to be the worst in the Zeke area. The run game is just, and re-signing their defense they're not going to be the same freak defense that they were last year. Those teams don't repeat year after year unless if it's go to the 85 Bears, the Ravens. You have these teams that go elite one year and then they fall off the next year. They regress hard. They're the team to avoid picking as your defense, unless Dak goes like Super Saiyan. He's going to be a Kirk Cousins tier quarterback. He's not a true difference maker, but he's going to put up enough stats to make your fantasy team happy, but not enough to, make your star $20 million wide receiver happy and say some really unkind things after a playoff game.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
I do think that the Dolphins had the best free agency, and I was leaning that way pre-Hill trade.
Yeah.
I think they made some really good signings. They didn't break the bank on anyone except for Armstead. They spent cheap on guys they knew that could perform at a high level, but not an elite level. And they did that for several guys. They got the only signing I didn't like was Cedric Wilson, but they set Tua up to succeed very well, and I'm excited to watch Tua play this season, and I do believe that he will take a nice step forward with having, Hill, Gesicki, Waddle, and Chase Edmonds all as good pass catching options. And Cowboys have really bit the bullet here. So that's kind of just a little recap of kind of how we're feeling on some free agent guys and teams, how they did. What do you do in the middle of free agency? We're looking to capitalize on free agency within our dynasty rosters and our dynasty teams. And so what do you do during the offseason here when you're paying attention to free agency? You're seeing Russell Wilson to the Broncos. You're seeing, J.C. Jackson being let go and going to the Chargers. You're seeing James Conner to the Cardinals. What do you do as a dynasty owner when all of this chaos is happening?
So the first thing that I do is when I have my microphone on backwards and there's a mic piece there, I make sure that this microphone is off behind me because every time I move my head up and down like this, it catches the sweatshirt and makes a horrible noise.
Sweet.
Yeah. So just wanted to let you know. First thing I do actually is go over to Spotrac, so SPOTRAC, and study the teams. You see the money that's coming in, who's likely to be cut. They kind of give projection scenarios. You can mess around with some things, and it gives you an understanding of what teams are looking to do, shuffle around, what their money is committed to, how dead cap looks. I mean, everyone says that the cap is magic, but this gives you at least a base understanding of, okay, how much can they actually move? And teams like the Cowboys do a horrid job of creating movement, while the Saints are wizards of being able to move things around. So from that, you can start to pick up players who may not have the money situation, but have the talent. And then you can buy them low before they have the money as they get into opportunity. Like I picked up assets like Kirk Cousins and Dallas Goedert. He was a taxi squad cut in the past. And this year I picked up David Njoku for no fab before he was even tagged. So just understanding that you have talent leading into free agency, target that because they will get their opportunity per the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Hitting the free agent wire. And sometimes you've got to hit that beforehand. Like a lot of leagues stated Njoku was rostered, but like when I went and looked at the free agent pool, let's say in November, Mitchell Trubisky was out there. Marcus Mariota was out there. And so those are guys that you can pick up and stash. And especially in a super flex league, those guys are going to sell super well. Just knowing that they're on the last year of their contract, near the trade deadline, people were inquiring about Mariota and all this offseason hype about Mitch Trubisky. And so just paying attention to who's out there. And if you've got to hold somebody for 6 months before they return value, it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah. I advised a league mate who's trying to get better at Dynasty. I told him to go pick up a couple of the quarterbacks, and they've all paid out. And then he got adventurous on his own and went and traded for Tua, arguably low now, and then they traded for Tyreek. So I have yet to have a conversation with him about where he got that insight from. I thought it was a horrid trade at the time, and it's like, well done. So I mean, a guy who bought in on Carson Wentz went from having Davis Mills as his quarterback to having Carson Wentz, Tua, and Marcus Mariota. So on a league that had no starting quarterbacks available in free agency. So it's just about paying attention and understanding that there's opportunity. And then the other thing that I look for is understanding there's a difference between talent and opportunity. David Njoku is so much more physically talented than Dalton Schultz is. It's not close.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of them had a much better season than the other. But I was able to pick up David Njoku for nothing, and Schultz just got dealt for the 204 in my main Dynasty league. Believe in the talent, hope for the opportunity to come. Players like Mostert might have been dropped this offseason. Wasn't likely to sign with San Fran, but now he goes to a scheme that he shined in, regardless of what you think of Edmonds. He has more talent than Deontay Foreman, who was cooking down the stretch. You could have flipped Deontay Foreman for a pick on the high side of, okay, he produced down the stretch, get the draft pick, and then have Mostert on my roster, who is just flat out more talented than Foreman is, has more of an upside. So I realize some people need, viable starting running backs, and people might have taken this chance on Foreman being staying in Tennessee and being the backup handcuff to Derrick Henry, but he went behind CMC, which, I argue is a very similar opportunity.
I almost feel like it may be a better opportunity, just because in Tennessee there was kind of a split opportunity to where Dontrell Hilliard was getting it, and just all these different guys. I think that the Panthers like one guy to be able to do it all, and so.
Well, and Foreman showed that, but Hilliard also showed the upside, and the
Absolutely.
Titans kept Hilliard,
Mm-hmm.
and the Panthers went, well, if CMC goes down again, we want somebody who we can plug in there for 4.1 yards a carry, catch the occasional ball, and continue to move the chains.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he's not. Foreman might have been valuable, but he was literally getting the opportunity, which made him valuable. It's like Mike Davis 2 years ago. He got all of the work, therefore he was super valuable.
Mm-hmm.
But he's nowhere near as talented as Cordero Patterson, which Zach and I both said that Patterson would be the RB1 for the Falcons last year. We may have been saying it sarcastically, but we're like, he's the most talented running back on the roster.
Yeah.
We're right. We just should have followed our advice a little bit sooner. You got anything else?
No, what's your next point here?
One of the things that I'm trying to address, so I'm really trying to delve into the TikTok realm, is who is going to lose out with a signing and or draft pick, and who could explode with a contract new supporting talent. These are the guys I'm trying to cut versus the guys that I'm trying to hold on to. Tom Brady retired temporarily. It seemed like Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette were going to walk, and I had picked up Keyshawn Vaughn at the end of the season and stashed him. So I used Vaughn and a flurry of other things, but basically I heightened the value, and I got Brandon Cooks out of it. Now Tom is back. Lenny is back for 3 years, and I look like a genius because Vaughn ain't the guy. And I got a reliable wide receiver. I got offered some high seconds for James Conner and Cordero Patterson, but I held on to the proven talent to wait on the contract. So now James Conner is alone and a top 6 running back based off of his usage, and Patterson is back for 2 years. I haven't seen the fully guaranteed, but I think it's pretty solid 2 years. I ended up flipping Amari Cooper who is rumored to be a cap casualty at the point, and a 2022 second for Jerry Jeudy and a 2023 first, because I believed in the talent of Jeudy, the upside of Jeudy, over the, I'd say, consistency of Cooper, and believe the Broncos were going to do whatever they needed to do to get a QB. And part of that is just you have to commit to the things that you believe and act on them. And, I've made horrible decisions, like multiple first for Montgomery as a rookie, and tried to learn from those things and don't overvalue Homer-isms anymore. But, commit to the things that you believe, and understand when it's make your choice on when to hold and when to fold.
Yeah, absolutely. There's really something about believing. You need to invest in what you believe in, because it's really hard to trade for the guys after they've blown up.
Yeah.
If you try to trade for Jerry Jeudy right now versus 5 weeks ago, Jerry Jeudy would have been traded for Mike Williams. But
Yeah.
now Jerry Jeudy is in this tier to where
DK Metcalf. I mean,
he's being valued as a top 15 dynasty wide receiver. And while I don't think that's entirely far-fetched, you've got to invest in these guys before they break out.
Yep.
I mean, Justin Jefferson was the 111 in rookie drafts, and now he's the 111 in startups, of all the player pools. And so, like, these guys that you believe in, you have to go get before
absolutely
their value just absolute breaks, and they're not worth it. Like, the people who were super in on Kyle Pitts they got a phenomenal pick, because he is phenomenal at what he does. And now, even though he had a great yardage season, he only caught 1 touchdown, but now he is regarded as the top tight end in dynasty football, and people are paying a bounty to go get him. And so it's just buying into those guys before they break out is just insanely important, because that value does absolutely break.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, how does free agency change the trade market?
So obviously people change in value depending on what happens, but before the collective dust settles, it creates such an opportunity for you to get value, either by trading away high or buying low. You have a clear thought on, we were just talking about it, on a player's trajectory, be it your own research or an analyst that you believe in. I'm doing it on the wrong side. I'm still doing it on the wrong side. There we go. Everyone is so nervous to trade with me now in my leagues, because they always think I know something they don't. And it is like pulling teeth to negotiate. I'm looking at you, Andy. I'm coming at you. I have multiple league mates run trades by me within my main league, because I read up, I commit, and I move on if I need to. When people are sharing who you are asking about publicly, because it increases the player's value, you are doing it right. People post that, trade things out, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that Adam knows something, because my roster's deep and I commit and I buy in, and when I fail, I move on. So it's
I agree with that. There is some volatility with the signings. Like when Tyreek Hill got traded, I immediately tried to buy Jalen Waddle for cheap, because he's not the one in that offense anymore. And unfortunately, sometimes people are smarter with some of the higher caliber players. So that in dynasty rankings, Jalen Waddle is the top 12 guy. Hill has been a top 12 guy, and so people don't generally sell low on guys like that. But when you get into that mid range, that round 5, 6, 7 in startups. Those are the sort of players that you can kind of get a discount on. Like Amari Cooper, after he was rumored, or yeah, when he got traded to the Cleveland Browns, um, people were buying low, and I didn't, because I was, as most of you know, if you follow me anywhere, I do not think that Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback. And so when Amari Cooper went to Baker Mayfield, I was like, you know what? I don't want any Amari Cooper shares. And then 2 weeks later, Deshaun Watson is throwing to Amari Cooper, and I'm like, you know what? Can we undo some of those trades? Because I would be okay with having Deshaun Watson's number one, and so you just have to like sell on what you believe in, and sell high in the value of a guy like Cordero Patterson, who's 30 years old right now and does fulfill a role, but or a guy like Marcus Mariota, who's a bridge quarterback right now, probably never going to be that franchise guy. But if you can get, a late first or an early second for Marcus Mariota, absolutely pull the trigger on that. And so just finding the value after people sign of how high people are willing to buy, because the Bears haven't added a wide receiver in free agency. I was able to trade Darnell Mooney for T. Higgins this week.
What?
And yeah, it was awesome. Like
you got T. Higgins.
Yes, I offered
for Mooney straight up.
Yes, straight up. I offered Cortland Sutton and Jacoby Myers for T. Higgins, just to kind of get the conversation started. And he countered with Darnell Mooney for T. Higgins. And I had to look it over a couple times because I was like, wait, am I sending Higgins? Is he sending Higgins? And then I was like, oh my gosh, he just sent me a 1-for-1 for T. Higgins to Darnell Mooney. And I was so excited.
Don't get me wrong I love Darnell Mooney, but T. Higgins is a
different athlete.
When his contract is up at the Bengals, he is going to be handed so much money to play for another team.
Well, right now I see him in a similar light to Chris Godwin, to where he's in the shadow of Jamar Chase, but he is absolutely a phenomenal talent and is going to have a lot of
and both of them
output.
Like both of those two, Chase and Higgins, have higher upside than Evans and Godwin combined.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Crazy valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
All right, give me some tips that you use to capitalize in the mess, but give them to me a little quick because we're rounding out the show here, but I want to get a couple last minute to it.
Use public evaluation to check things. So Keep Trade Cup, it's open sourced. There are some pitfalls to it. You just have to be aware. I like to use 3 different ones, kind of compare and see where the market is sitting at. You can grab older people at stud values for almost no cost, because Dynasty, nobody wants the old guys. Then make your decision before the moves happen in free agency for real. Do I trade them now, hold out for the contract? What we talked about before. That's how you can generate that value. Like, I held on to James Conner because I thought he could get the starting role in Arizona, stay there, and Edmonds could leave. Bang. And it happened. And I don't think they're going to spend any draft capital on it. And then understand the rules of your league. Each league is unique. Use your injury reserve, taxi squad to maximize your roster spots while you wait for players to pan out. Do not have a taxi squad when you go into the season with 1 player because you only had 1 draft pick. If you can have 8 players, you better be filling it with 8 people, because it gives just a little bit more percentage that you find a guy that hits. And then understand little side rules. So kick and punt return yards. I had Patterson because of that. Cordero Patterson, because we had in my league those are points that is value added. So if he got just a little bit of offensive work, that would be huge. And then kick return, all that stuff, it would add value. So understand the rules of your league and maximize them to be there. And if people get mad, which people get mad at me quite often in our league, they literally created roster cuts because I have created too many roster spots um, and stacked too many players over time. They want me to stop flipping people. Understand it's because I understand the rules better than anyone else. I have taken the time to do that. I don't have 30 leagues like Zach does over here. I have 3, and I have 1 dynasty. And I spend my time in that because if I spent in 30 times, I wouldn't talk to my wife and child. So,
Yeah,
nature of who I am.
It's absolutely important to know your league settings and know your league rules. I was in a tight end premium league and a non-tight end premium draft at the same time. And in the non-tight end premium draft, I drafted TJ Hawkinson and Noah Fant back to back. And in the tight end premium draft, I waited on tight end pretty long, and my lines got crossed, and so I had no tight end in the tight end premium, and I had like 4 tight ends in the non-tight end premium, and so it ended up working out okay because I ended up my 4 tight ends were Noah Fant, T.J. Hawkinson, Dawson Knox, and Dalton Schultz. Those were the 4 guys I picked.
You flipped them all. When people were like, "What is this guy doing?"
Yeah, and so I don't have Hawk or Schultz anymore. Schultz. No, I still have Schultz. I don't have Hawk or Knox anymore. So I still have a good tight end room, but it's just important to know your settings because it's invaluable. You know, there's a couple leagues where I play where running backs get points per carry, and that is absolutely pertinent when you go to pick your flex players. And so, using outsourcing your trades to whether it's keep trade cut. I have a couple of group chats that I send and say, hey, this is the format, this is the scoring. What do you guys think? Just to keep me level-headed, because sometimes there are guys like Darnell Mooney that I love, or Chase Edmonds, and they keep me level-headed so that I don't go and make a decision that I'm going to regret. And so, that's about all the time we have today, but I want to know where I can find you, Adam.
You can find me at Adamski Fantasy, YouTube, email, Twitter, TikTok. I got the same handle everywhere. And if you ask me, DM me, I will tell you the story. I'm actually planning on creating a TikTok as to why it's Adamski. And it's not Adam Sky. Everyone says Adam Sky to pronounce it, but it's actually Adamski Fantasy. And there's a really funny, hilarious story behind it that we could not talk. Harm would come to you if you talked about it for about 10 years. I got pranked really hard,
bad,
really bad, and I was not happy about it for a long time. Now I've adopted it, and it's my gamer tag and mantra, and now it's my brand. So thank you, Carl and Nick, for that.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And if you guys go and annoy Adam in his DMs, he will tell you the story of Dr. Jessup and Dr. Owen.
Thanks.